Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folarin. Two subjects, one of them most unfortunate. The nation, I think, was regaled yesterday when the news, came out that a 22-year-old nursing student had actually died. And this was following a brutal attack on her. Doctors had battled for about 3 days to save her life. And the news reports yesterday was that they lost the fight. And the girl had died after being most grotesquely murdered, it would seem. All of social media was agog with, her name is Uwa Omozua. She's also referred to as Vera. It's such a distasteful story, and it's most unfortunate that here we are starting off the month with this story. But as reports have it, we have a correspondent in Edo State, but what we're hearing is that no less than 4 men reportedly raped her and then also inflicted grievous harm on her by striking her reportedly with a fire extinguisher. I mean, it really boggles the mind. You're really trying to picture this. Is this real, or is this some grotesque, macabre horror story? But it's real. Our reporter in Edo State, we're getting him, he probably is getting ready for us. But Paul Ezenwa is our Edo State correspondent, and we shall be speaking with him later. But to get the updates, because we hear, and he'll be telling us more about that, we hear that UNIBEN students are, really up protesting this grotesque situation. But first of all, an earlier report that Paul Ezenwa had done for TVC News.
The dream and aspiration of late Owaila Omozowa, a first-year student of microbiology in the University of Benin, was cut short on the 27th of May 2020 by unknown persons who allegedly raped her, an action believed to have led to her death 3 days later. She was a regular visitor to the church, where she goes to read. A mother of the 22-year-old lady and her siblings have been members of the church for 15 years.
The victim is always going to the church to read almost every day. So she went there to read. When she was done reading, she was about leaving the premises, the church premises. That was how some guys came. They raped her.
With what we saw her state, it was not good at all. Bite mark all over her body, her hand, her mouth. So when we saw her deteriorating condition at that hospital, they couldn't handle it. They immediately took her to UBTH. That's where she gave up last night.
When I saw one of the injury, I felt tears as a father. I thought that was only the injury. I never knew that the injury was much.
Family of the deceased and members of the Association of Nigerian Students are calling for justice for Owaila Omozowa.
We want urgent results. We don't want to always come and they'll be telling us we are working on the case. We want to give them 48 hours to give us something concrete, or else Nigerian students will not have any other choice to begin to demand for our rights.
How would you tell me that more than 20 houses here did not hear a girl screaming?
Please, we need justice. Please, we need justice.
It took the timely intervention of the police to avert a mob action when the pastor of the church went on a condolence visit to the family of the deceased.
When you get to the... no, Oga, we are trying to be listening.
You not to live here.
The police is here to arrest the suspects. Paul Ezenwa, TVC News, Benin.
Okay. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Okay. I know you answered me just now, but I can't hear you. Good morning, Mr. Makpadiro.
Can you hear me?
Aha, fine, excellent. Yeah, now I can hear you, Paul. Good morning, Mr. Makpadiro. We have Mr. Makpadiro also on air with us.
Good morning, Mr. Fola.
Thank you very much. Paul, a most worrisome of reports. You know, grotesque is what comes to the mind. Is there an update? Because your report there was so graphic in terms of what the people were feeling, and I guess that gentleman in the suit was a pastor, is a pastor, and he almost was assaulted. What's the update you can give us?
Yeah, presently, behind me, you can see students from various schools, various institutions in the state gathering at the King Square to try to protest over the gruesome murder of that little girl. Most of them have described her as a quiet, gentle, and peaceful person. Why she was a student and course mate, and they felt they should call on the relevant authorities to do everything possible to bring these perpetrators to book, because this has been the issue in the state, with reference to such thing that happened last year when a girl was assaulted with pepper on her private part. They are saying this will put an end to such dastardly acts in the state, that they are going to protest to various agencies, probably to government house and the police authority, to call for just
then there's also the sacrilege aspect to the whole story. The crime scene was actually a church. If reports serve us right, Redeemed Christian Church of God, Edo Province 10, is reported to be the church. And then you such a traditional society in there, you know, Edo State, Benin, and I imagine everybody must be outraged. But first of all, tell me, the story is out there, but she's a 22-year-old nursing student, is that correct? Was a 22-year-old nursing student?
Microbiology.
Oh, microbiology student at the University of Benin.
Yes, sir. A first-year student of microbiology, University of Benin.
And what are the facts of the case as we have them now? I think people say allegedly 4 men were involved in this dastardly act.
Yeah, for now, I can't say authoritatively the number of persons that assaulted her, because we don't know. No investigation has been said. Nothing has been said by vividly from the police angle of it, that they'll tell the investigation is on. The act was committed in the church, as you can see. Like when we were speaking to the dad yesterday, he said he only started going to church not quite long because of that very daughter who convinced her to become a Christian. That all this while he has been a traditionalist. But look at her daughter dying in the church, that now she's going to return back to her way, his way of worship.
Okay, I especially appreciate when you said, Paul, that we can't really be talking about the number of men because they're going to investigate, because the question would then have been, how do they know the number without us having more facts than we actually have now? But what are the facts that surround this as far as we know? We're reading in the papers that she liked to go to the church to study because of the quiet there. And that this whole thing was discovered when the key keeper of the church reportedly went to retrieve the key and was told that, oh, Uwa had it. He then went back, and that was when he found her. Can you tell us if any of that is credible?
Yes, very well. This late Owaila Omozowa has been studying inside the Redeemed Church for 5 years.
Okay, we're going to get him back because I'm sure Paul was giving us some details in there. But in the meantime, Yemi, thank you, as I said again, for joining us. I just don't know how to describe it, but it really makes your heart ache. And the numbers that were first of all given us, as Paul was saying, that I don't know where those numbers came from. We have to wait for the authorities to give us figures that 4 men might have been involved. First of all, how does I don't know what to say. Yemi, how does this grab you? Okay, we're having connectivity problems. We have Mr. Yemi Makwadero on. We also have Mr. Paul, well, our Paul. We also have Paul. Okay, Yemi, I was just saying, give me your impressions on when this story sort of broke yesterday, that in such a traditional place as Edo State, Benin is in there, this kind of a sacrilegious act occurred.
Well, I just need to say that the story broke, and when I read it, I was filled with shock and trepidation. The picture printed there, um, defiling the young woman, and then smashing her head, leading to her death. As a father myself who has a daughter, um, my heart goes out, to the parents of the who at 22 managed to get back to school, because I mean at that age many of our colleagues obviously must have graduated or prepared for graduation. So I imagine the kind of tenacity that led her to continue to have faith, in higher education, only for her life to be terminated, in the course of that.
As our man was saying, that is Paul Ezenwa, there seem to have been a number of occurrences along these lines. He was just telling us about the distasteful story of, another kind of assault that had involved, inflicting, unmentionable harm on females. What's going on? And then people are now saying that, actually it's not as infrequent as we might like to believe, but that perhaps we don't have the right attitude for these kind of things. That is, have a zero tolerance for it, feel a sense of sacrilege, outrage. We tend to look away, unfortunately.
Honestly, it is amazing because I mean, as somebody who has the knowledge of how churches operate, I know that only 24 hours in a day, there must be somebody in the church. I mean, if the church doesn't have a full-time pastor, they will have, a security guard, they will have a sexton. There should just must be somebody within the vicinity and the premises of the church. Because for Mozua to have access into the place in the first place showed that, I mean, somebody was there responsible for opening and closing the gate, or I mean, monitoring what happens around there. So for such a grotesque action to take place undetected, uh, for I don't know how long, I mean, baffles one. It's just sad. I mean, it's a
Indeed.
very bad way to.
One of the people milling around the reporter as he was, covering the story, he actually wondered aloud what you've just said, that look, considering that there must be people to the left, to the right, how could this have happened? She would have made noise. These are the conjecture, because nobody was there. And we have to wait on police to let us know. But this is most traumatizing. This is most traumatizing. Thank you, Yemi. Stay with us, please, Yemi, and as well as Paul. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. And I think we also have Paul Ezenwa, a man in Edo State, a TVC News correspondent in Edo State, back. Good to have you back, Paul. When you were speaking the last time, you were telling us the heart-wrenching story of how Uwa was actually responsible for, bringing her father into church. And I think that was when there were connectivity problems. Can you hear me, Paul?
Yes, very well.
Yes, please continue.
I hear you.
Please continue.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, the father to the deceased said he has been a traditionalist. He never believed in going to church, but not quite recently, her late daughter, Owa, forced him or intervened by speaking to him to start going to church. And he finds it difficult to believe that her daughter would die inside the church, whereas the daughter was convincing him to see the need going to church. For now, it's disheartening that that same church is where her daughter died, and he will not continue going to that church.
Oh, is it the mother or the father that was?
The father of,
the father. Okay.
The father.
Okay.
Yeah, the father.
Okay. Now
the mother has been attending the same church with her for 15 years, and she has been a chorister in that same church.
Oh, I see. Now, what is the police saying about advancing the investigation in this case? What's the situation right now? Did the police get involved as far back as when the assault was known to them?
Yeah, according to the father, what the father said, they said that when they got the news, when they were called to come to the church and gave them the information of what happened to the daughter, he went to Orebeni police station to report the incident of her daughter. And from there, the police took it up and started investigation.
Has the police been able to give us anything more than what we already know via the newspaper? I mean, you said that one has to be cautious about citing a number for the number of people that attacked her. But has the police given us anything? What do you get a sense of urgency with the police? Give me your impression.
For the now, the police has not come up with any valid information on the investigation. The last time we spoke to the police command, they said they are still investigating. They'll make sure they get to the root or the bottom of the incident.
So, as we speak,
for now, no further information.
No arrest. No arrest.
No arrest has been made. Nothing has been made. No.
Tell me, Paul, since you're on the ground there, how deserted is that church? Because one would imagine that she wouldn't have been quiet. It wouldn't have been a quiet crime scene. What can you tell us about that? Are there neighbors to the church?
Yeah, the church is situated in a living area, if I may say, and one will wonder how the people living around the premises would not hear this girl screaming, because buildings are around by the side and even opposite. So it's not just a church building located in a lonely environment. It's a living or residential environment. So one will wonder why such act could take place in that place without anybody coming to our aid. It's so painful.
Mr. Joshua in Irewale, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
My condolences goes to the family of that young lady.
Uwa.
It is so unfortunate.
Yes.
I feel very pained about this matter. Very pained.
Uwa Omozorua.
Hello, sir.
Uwa Omozorua.
Yeah, it's very painful that this is happening.
I'm sorry.
I would just say straight that knowing the setup of a church and the local church, that matter should not be difficult to unravel. It should not be difficult to unravel. By my understanding, there to be a pastorium in the church environment, which means either the pastor is living within the church premises or somehow there is a presence in that church premises. So that matter should not be difficult to unravel. And to stop this embarrassment on the nation, what I'm just going to point out on this matter is there should be no high-level cover-up on this matter. Whoever is involved should be fished out. I don't know how they got the calculation of 4 men being involved. Who counted the number
that's what
of the 4 men?
Exactly.
That's an indication that somebody may be distracting attention from the real issue.
Yeah.
There are no matters of 4.
Okay.
We should just take it now that we don't know the perpetrator. And the police should swing to action very swiftly.
Yeah.
So that this matter doesn't go too long before it runs cold. These organizations, they have this attitude of covering up matters. I want to say that there was an allegation of a guy killing the father, bagging the body in the headquarters of that church some years past. And we don't know what the result of that case is now. It's still on ground.
Okay, thank you.
So they should unravel this one so that it will be a deterrent to anybody who wants to go.
Sure. Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. Joshua. A most distressing story. And I imagine that we do need to hear from the authorities, both traditional and also security and the police. We just need to hear from them. Well, thank God for social media. It was trending all over social media, we hear. There are so many aspects to the case that it is only the police that can speak to those matters. How did the number 4 come up? How did the number 4 men come up? And if this is what it seems like, that it's a rape, gang rape. In fact, there are newspaper reports that it was a gang rape by 4 men. I mean, it's just mind-boggling because the amount of violence. You will leave the police to do their work and we just have to be patient. But 4 men allegedly involved. What's that bit about the fire extinguisher bashing her head in? So one doesn't. Did I hear that Victor is also on the line? Victor, good morning, Victor.
Hello, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Victor calling from Benin, like I said.
Okay. Victor from Benin. Okay.
We've seen the police jurisdiction that is handling the supposed incident. And I want to state categorically that if there will be any truth to come out from this issue, that case should be taken away from that police jurisdiction because I personally have had issues with them and I had to suspend that because my life was at risk. So I would advise that issue is taken away from that particular police jurisdiction. I was watching on TV. I saw the team lead on your channel just now. I want to plead that case should be taken away from that police jurisdiction because I believe, in my own opinion, that they are biased.
You're talking about Oregbeni, if I'm saying it right, Oregbeni Police Station. Oregbeni Police Station.
Oregbeni Area Command, and that particular team lead was on your station, meaning is part of those handling these issues.
Yeah.
You understand?
Okay. Thank you very much for calling in, but maybe we shouldn't prejudge the police, but you've had your say. Paul, maybe you heard Victor there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, his own concern, and indeed it had been said earlier, is that there should be no cover-up. Isn't this past that? Can there possibly be a cover-up? What are we covering? Who can cover up such a dastardly act? But his fears. Would you like to? What can you comment about his fears? That is the last caller's fears about there might have been incidents, and even before then, somebody else also called in to say that there might also be some antecedents, or shall we say, some precedents in that particular church. Unfortunately, in the past, what has your research thrown up in those 2 cases?
Yeah, on the issue of the incident that the former guy called in to say it has happened before, I don't have the knowledge of such incident. But let me speak on the issue of the guy who said there might be a cover-up. Well, that can be possible because we don't know what the police intend to do or what they are doing. But speaking seriously, the female Lawyers Association in Edo State chapter this morning has said that they will be on top of the issue. They will ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book, that already they are working hand in hand with the police, and they will ensure to follow up that this is a bad omen for the state, as this has happened before. For this, they will not take it lightly.
Okay.
So I believe they might not be that cover up, as he said.
Mr. George Inikeji has called in. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Uncle Yori, I want to continue from where Joshua stopped.
Okay.
The perspective I want to address is that of police reform. I've been talking about the need for President Buhari to reform our police and bring in a person that is not from the police system to reform our police. Nobody is listening. What is the issue? The issue is that the police doesn't take the complaints about rape serious. They'll be asking the women, how did you dress? Well, how are you going to confirm that this happens? I saw a tweet by, I don't know who tweeted it. He said, women are tired. I know this is true. Is the country going to be turned to India, where men will rape women inside a public bus and nothing will happen? Yeah. I am not going to be part of such a country.
Indeed.
Uncle Yori, I just imagine if that girl were to be my daughter and how that father is feeling now.
Yes, I can imagine.
It's too brutal to be tolerated.
Indeed.
The investigation shouldn't be limited to that particular police station because, you know, that police station is close to the campus. And there is a perception that a lot or 90% of the crime in Benin City, the criminals are living in that area.
Okay.
Carry it out in that area.
Okay, Mr. George, I'm going to have to interrupt you. Thank you very much for calling in. But and also I want to thank our man in in Edo, that is to say the TVC News reporter Paul Ezenwa, for staying on this story. We're going to have to leave it now and await police investigations. But we just had to cover it, we just had to cover it a bit. So stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. A most unfortunate story that we just had to start with. That it's an outrage and taboo even. So, but we move on, and as I said, we'll wait on the police to inform us. So we want to switch over to power. This is something we wanted to talk about last week. I'm talking about electricity, generating, transmission, and distribution of power. We wanted to talk about that last week in the context of the president ordering relevant people to fast track and complete, in a very, very timely matter, all the preliminary work towards, sort of reforming the whole power structure in Nigeria. I'm talking about the PPI, the Presidential Power Initiative, and it involves Siemens AG, and it's for a hefty bit of money. It seems to be there will be a departure from how we used to do things before. The president is reported to be personally involved in this. He has a very personal interest, and I hear that he's like virtually supervising this directly through the vice president. Well, we have the senior special assistant for public affairs in the presidency, Mr. Ajuri Ingilale, joining us on the phone. Good morning, Ajuri.
Good morning, Mr. Yori, and good morning to our viewers.
Indeed, thank you very much for making time to come.
Pleasure.
And speak with us about this. Now, this initiative that involves Siemens, could you just give us an overview, please, of it? Because it would appear that the president, or shall we say the PPI, has crossed so many lanes in there Because we used to have bottlenecks in terms of generation, transmission, distribution, but it looks like all of that has now been covered. Was everybody carried along?
Yes, absolutely. Let me just start from the problem, right? So you have problems across, generation isn't so much of an issue for now. We have the capacity to generate sufficient megawatts for now. We're doing about 7,000, and if we had the transmission and distribution to meet up, we could even probably pick that up to 12,000 because there's the capacity to do so. But we're not generating that much now because it would, of course, uptick the costs of what we are already offsetting. Let me explain very clearly. Over the last several years, probably about 5 years or so, we have paid about approximately 1.5 trillion naira in funds through NBET to our power generation companies because they're generating power and the distribution companies do not have sufficient capacity, infrastructural capacity due to underinvestment, which goes back to the privatization flaws. But essentially what that means is that because the generation companies are generating so much power and the distribution companies cannot receive and distribute that power and make the money from people buying that power as a result of the failures in distribution, then the government now steps into NBET to pay the generation companies because if they're not paid, power cannot continue to be generated, which means there would be no power supply in the country. So we've been losing a lot of money like that. And so the president now said, look, we have to now step in. We can't wait for the privatized distribution companies to just wake up and decide to do what has not been done over the course of the last 7 months. So let's partner. Let's agree on how this is going to work. So he now, in August 2018, sat down with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and she brought in the Siemens global CEO. And essentially what was decided is that we're going to do like a one-stop solution with Siemens to deal with the issues that are prevalent across generation, transmission, and distribution, but with phase one dealing predominantly with distribution and a bit of transmission. What it entails is in the past, a federal government would take billions of dollars out of the excess crude account, pay it into a government agency. Then, of course, the usual Nigerian procurement wahala, where an agency CEO will now be paying friends in the party and cronies and cousins and wives and all of that. So we've avoided all of that. The president has said no longer are we going to be involved in procurement and finance and all of that. We're going to remove our hand from that and become project supervisors. So the arrangement is that out of the entire 100% of the cost of the Siemens deal, of the Presidential Power Initiative, 80% is funded by the German Export Credit Agency, who will pay Siemens directly. So the money is coming from Germany and paid to Siemens within Germany. Then the 20% counterpart fund from the Federation account coming from Nigeria is being paid directly to Germany. So it's not going through the usual bureaucratic wahala where you have diversion and misappropriation, because the president said we are determined to get this done and corruption will not stop us this time around. So that's essentially the way that the thing is structured. So now the Siemens engineers went around the country with Nigerian engineers in conjunction with the privatized distribution company owners and all the stakeholders. And they did a forensic technical audit on all of the distribution infrastructure around the country and developed a blueprint, a roadmap on the basis of all of the needs that they were able to evaluate. And it's on the basis of that they now put together the roadmap and then, of course, the bill. And so that is now what is being financed between the German Export Credit Agency and, of course, the counterpart fund that we put together.
Ajuri, thank you very much for that overview, that broad overview. Now, there are phases, there are targets as well for 3 different phases. Could you
That's correct. So how it works is phase one, in the wisdom of the president, he said, look, we need to deal with distribution first. Already we're doing 7,000 megawatts generation. We have capacity to transmit about 7,000 megawatts. Where we have been hurting is distribution. That is what has cost us so much money in terms of all this, if you want to call it subsidy, that we've been having to step in and pay the generation companies. It's because of distribution, mostly. So now, once we get to the point where we deal with distribution, we can now receive all of that generated and transmitted power and all of that. Right now, especially during the rainy season, we average between 2,500 and 3,300 megawatts in terms of actual distribution. That means, for those who don't understand, even if you're generating and transmitting 1 million megawatts of power, if you can only distribute 3,000 megawatts, it's only 3,000 megawatts you will see in our homes, in our businesses. So it's very important. So now, phase one says that by December 2021, this is according to the roadmap, we would have raised distribution capacity from the current approximately 3,500 up to 7,000 megawatts, so that we can receive all of the currently generated and transmittable power in the country.
Did you say December? Did you say December 2041?
No, my bro, no, God forbid, my brother. 2021, oh.
Because I thought there might be a slip of tongue.
No, 2021. So it's
2021.
It's the end of next year.
2021. Maybe I didn't hear you well.
Hiccup we have seen, obviously, is that the roadmap was before the whole COVID-19 thing. So obviously, you're going to have some delays in terms of financing, in terms of some of the things that you want to tidy up. But any delay that would have been caused by COVID-19 will only be months and not years. So we're still very much sticking to our roadmap.
And so the middle phase, after the first phase, what's the target for the middle phase?
Yes, so phase two says that by December 2023, we will get to 11,000 megawatts. How does that work? You know, everything that the president is doing is integrated. So, you know, he has worked very hard on this Ajeokuta to Kaduna to Kano gas pipeline, AKK, which is commencing construction, which has already commenced construction under OilServe. That's the name of the company that's embarking on it. $2.8 billion pipeline. Now, the phase two has to do with the construction of three gas-fired power plants along that pipeline. One in Abuja, for which we have already signed agreement with a U.S. company who is doing the feasibility studies on the Abuja plant. It's 1,350 megawatt power plant. 1,350 megawatt plant in Kaduna and 1,350 megawatt plant in Kano. So you have those three plants along that gas pipeline, and that together is about 4,000 megawatts. And so that, in conjunction with the completion of several other projects that the president is determined to complete that have been there for several years, like Zungero Hydro Power Project in Niger State, that's 700 megawatts. Then you have the 215 megawatt Kaduna Power Plant, which is at a final stage of toward completion. So all of these things are going to come together to allow us to not just generate the 11,000, but the key, transmitting and distributing the 11,000 by the end of 2023. That's phase two.
Now the ultimate, where we're going, which is phase three.
Indeed. So phase three is 25,000 megawatts by 2025, according to the roadmap. Now, the reason why we're quite optimistic, there are two things here. First of all, we want to prove to our people that this is not government talk. This is a situation where we can verify that because we have transformed the processes leading to the implementation of this project, that this is a huge departure from the past. And the way that you prove it is with action and not words.
Okay.
So we want to get through phase one and then phase two. And then, of course, as we get closer, we will now unveil phase three and how exactly we're going to do it.
I want to thank you very much, Ajuri. Stay with us, please. Now, I also have Mr. Bala Zaka online. Thank you very much for joining us, Bala. So here we are. That's the plan. As you've heard, the senior special assistant in the presidency sort of outline it for us. Bala, everything if I understood it, somehow everything is now going to be handled by Siemens, and that will be a first. It will be entirely the responsibility of Siemens. Any monies that we are paying is being paid to the German government, and they will deal with Siemens. So there are no outsiders, no middlemen, no rent seekers, no commission agents. What do you think about that?
Well, if it comes to fruition, we are going to be happy. We are going to appreciate it. But this is what I want to tell you, sir. As far as I'm concerned, strategic industrial sectors, strategic domestic sectors, and strategic commercial sectors can only function effectively when there is availability of power. And it is that power that we require to drive energy. That's the first point. The second point is this. When a consumer wants to be served, whatever happens at the back end is irrelevant to the consumer. The most important thing is the consumer wants to be fed and wants to be fed effectively. Sir, I had so many opportunities of being in your studios. As we speak now, consumers are only feeding from your face and what you are telling them. But if they will be told the activities, the combination of activities that make you to look the way you are looking on the screen, some of them will have their ears blocked. And that simply means most of the time, the consumer honestly is not interested in what happens at the back end. The consumer just wants to see that service. And if possible, the quality of that service deliverability is what the consumer will want to appreciate. Because of this COVID-19, to be honest, globally, there is a disruption in everything. Economies have been disrupted, pundits have been proved wrong. So all we will continue to do is to hope and pray and wish that this one comes to fruition.
Okay.
Sir, you are also aware that years back, we talked about modular refineries coming on stream. Till this moment, zero. We talked about so many things till this PIB, till this time, zero. But we will always, as I will always put it, appreciate our leaders. Whenever they come up with initiative like this, it's always our joy that it comes to fruition and success. And we will wish them success. But honestly, as consumers, we just want to see that which we need for our strategic industrial sectors, commercial sectors, and if possible, domestic sectors.
Sure. Thank you very much, Bella.